Welcome to the fastest stuff in town. Today we'll set this Makkot stuff Chaf. We are going to begin on the bottom of Yud Testament Beis. So we've been learning in yesterday's daf the din of Meiser Sheni, and a person can get Malchus Kusum B'chayev in two situations. Either if you eat the Meiser Sheni tahar, your tahar, and you're eating outside of the walls, or you're inside and you're tameh, and the Meiser Sheni is tameh. So the idea is because you could have been poided. You're allowed to be poided Meiser Sheni in your shalayim if it's tameh. The only time you cannot be poided Meiser Sheni is if it's tahar. You have to then do it inside. Okay. So with that, the Gemara continues. Rabbi Yossi Omer, let's say a Kohen has in his hand a fig, and it is tevel, it's untithed. So he says the following: So let this te'ena, the stem will be the truma. 10% will be like the northern part of this date. So we're talking about a year where there's Meiser Sheni. Let it be on the south. V'hi shnas Meiser Sheni. Obviously, it's during the year of your Meiser Sheni. Otherwise, you'd be giving Meiser Ani. V'hu b'Yerushalayim, and you are in Yerushalayim. Says Rashi, Kishikar Shemos Halolu. When you made this decoration, you're in Yerushalayim. Regarding this fig, okay. O Meiser Ani v'hu b'Gvulin. Or let's say we're talking about the other years, 3 or 6, and you made the same decoration about Meiser Ani, it's in the south, and even you're in Gevulin, even outside, because Meiser Ani is not totally on it being connected to Yerushalayim, like Meiser Sheni is. So the din is, Oichla, if a person eats this date, says the Gemara in Daf Chaf, Loika Achas. You get Malchus, says Rashi, D'loi hoitzia midi tevel b'kriyas Hashem zeh. Even though you made this statement, it still has the status of tevel. V'ka'ochel meiser rishon hatovel l'trumas meiser. And this person who was eating it is over. V'ka'over alav de tevel. Avol iser truma de ka'ochel leika. The lav of truma not. To a kohen because since he's a kohen, he's allowed to eat it because he's a kohen, eats truma. And he, granted, trumas meiser bmc asa. If let's say he mentioned trumas meiser, also known as meiser min a meiser, which the meiser rishon is taken off, given to the Levi, and then that 10% of that is given to the kohen. Havi matzi ochel kuli, could have eaten the whole thing. V'lo lucky midi davi trumas meiser a kohen. Because the Trumas Meiser goes to the Kohen as well. V'hu Kohen, as we said, he's a Kohen. V'meiser Rishon, v'meiser Sheni lo loki d'ha'av l'zarim shari. Because a Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni can be eaten by even a non-Kohen. Because, again, Meiser Rishon is typically given to a Levi. So, therefore, the din is, and of course, Meiser Sheni, Meiser Ani can be given to someone who's not a Kohen or a Levi also. So, you're only going to get to Malchus because of Trumas Meiser. V'zar she'ochla loikashtayim. However, non-Kohen who would have eaten it, he actually gets an additional iser because he's not allowed to eat. He's not allowed to eat truma because truma. The Kohen was allowed to eat truma, so he's over on lav once. But when it comes to the non-Kohen, he's chayav for eating truma. She'ilu betchila, before anything was taken off, ochla, if he ate it. Eno loika el achas. He would have just been chayav for eating tevel. But now that this decoration was made, so now he's chayav because the truma was separated, and on some level, and therefore he's chayav for eating truma as well as for eating meiser rishon without the trumas meiser being taken off. So time at East Yerushalayim. Okay. So once we understand that, we said that this whole situation took place, that he was in Yerushalayim, and he was allowed to make this decoration even about Meiser Sheni. Now, Habigavul and like a Sholish. It's mashma that if he was outside of the walls, then he would be chayav a third time. So he said like this. In yesterday's daf, we concluded that the only time you're chayav for eating meiser sheni outside of the walls is only when it was first brought in, was mishro pnei abayis, and then it was brought back out. Here it's mashma that the reason why he's chayav too, only the zar, he's not chayav because for the third, because he was in Yerushalayim, which you're allowed to eat the meiser sheni in Yerushalayim. However, if let's say he would have made this declaration outside and ate it outside, he'd be chayav for meiser sheni as well. But I thought we said you're only chayav for meiser sheni when you brought it in and then took it out, which is mashma. Maybe in this case, if it would have just have been out and never brought in and then taken out. Rabbi says no. How do you know? Maybe this case also is you brought it inside, you took it out, and that's the only time you'd be chayav. So yihachi malamemra. So what would be the chiddush? So hachi ma'askinen kagain dalwinhu bativlaihu. The point is that you brought it into Yerushalayim as tevel. You didn't bring it in as separated meiser sheni and then you brought it back out. That's certainly when you're going to be chayav. But the point, the chiddush, is that it was brought into Yerushalayim not separated. It was just tevel. It was this fig. But we say that when it comes to a matana, which is to be separated, it's ki'ilu like it was separated. And therefore, it's ki'ilu that it was brought in as meiser sheni, not brought in as tevel. Because again, you would maybe think it's only if it's meiser sheni, brought out, if it was outside, brought in, then brought back out, and you eat it out, you'd be chayav. Mashma, if it's just tevel brought in and then brought, and then even if let's say you make this declaration about meiser sheni, but since it didn't mishiro pnei abayis, when it entered it was tevel. No, the point is that matana shel hormos kamishur medamian, so it's ki'ilu like there was that meiser sheni which is inside of it. So Rabbi Yosi, matana shel hormos kamishur medam. Does he hold like that of Asan? Rabbi Shimon, Yehuda Oimer, Mishum Rabbi Yosi, focusing on the name of Rabbi Yosi. They don't argue al perishul nigmer malachton. If you have fruits in which it's not complete, but over Yerushalayim, you brought into Yerushalayim sheyifta meiser sheni shel hem v'yoich b'chol makom. That in that situation, because the fruit is not complete, so everyone holds, even though you brought it into Yerushalayim, you can be poided, because it was the whole isser is dafka when it's shenigmar. That's already completed. The other Yerushalayim, you brought into Yerushalayim, Shebeshami Oimim Yakser Meiser Sheni Shulahen, V'yoichav Yerushalayim. They actually have to eat in Yerushalayim. V'yasol Oimim Yifta, redeem it, V'yoichav B'chol Makom. Then you can eat it anywhere you want. So this is the machlokas. So if you want to say that what was not yet separated is ki'ilu like it was already separated, hakatul machitzos. So what difference does it make? The fact is that it went in, it's katul machitzos. So let's look at Rashi. Let's spend a couple of minutes looking at this Rashi. Fine. So Rashi says like this. Shenigmor malachtan l'meiser, that if it's completely ready for meiser, mi'amase gomer malachtan l'meiser. When is that? Rashi says is bechitin mishe yoreach hakri. It depends on the thing, but let's say when it's put into piles, so then already that's considered gmar malacha. Okay, and there's other cases depending. Ayin mesechtas meisrus. Sheyifta meiser sheni. So again, in the event that Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel do not disagree. They both agree that if, let's say, it was not fit for meiser sheni yet, and you can be poided right then and then. The question is, why would they say that? If you hold matna shel horma kamisha horma damian, so the fact that it went right when it went in, so then you shouldn't be able to poid it anymore. So let's look at Rashi. Shita meiser sheni adayin yeshlo pedia. You can simply poid it. Why? Since it wasn't completed, we do not say it's kamisha hermidam. So clearly he holds that you don't hold like that. Right? So that's the kasha. And the fact that it says Rav Yosi alibed Rav Beis Hillel, and says that clearly he doesn't hold matna shel korban k'mishur medamin. So meraba mechitza echol deraisa. When it comes to being able to eat the meiser sheni, so the din is that once it sees the walls, then you're able to eat it. However, mechitza likloit the rabbanon. This whole notion that the walls are kolot and therefore you cannot be poided once it goes into it, that's actually a din rabbanon. The only time they make that gezerah is if it's there, if it's extant. Betevli lo gozer rabbanon. However, when it comes to tevel, the rabbanon are not geyser. So what does that mean? So look at Rashi again. So Shema Mina the Hachis Spiritually the Beis Sham Makkot Beis Hillel in Amish. Okay, and Shema Mina Matnos Shulhurmi Kamosh Ulav Kamosh Hormi Damian. Okay, so one teretz is that we say that the only time that the walls will have some power midorises, so you can eat the meiser sheni once it goes inside. However, saying that the walls absorb it so that you cannot be paid it anymore, that's only din d'Rabbanan. But because there has not been a gemar malacha, so therefore it doesn't have the status of being the walls to be able to absorb it. Okay. Ravina Omer could go into nakadle bikanyum nisha boy de rapapa. So this is actually the kasha we said before, that if a person in yesterday's daf, if you're carrying a stick and the thing is behind you, so you're inside but the package is outside, so that is the chiddush. Says Rashi, ha de daikinan el ha b'gvulin like a shalish. So we said that in the gvulin you get malchus also for meiser sheni, the kabois malamemra itzrich going to nakadle bekanya. Again, you're holding the stick. The kamash malon the command. We said it's command dera pnei madami. So in that situation, you're considered to be chayiv already because it's considered like it saw the walls. So even though you're inside, you're holding the stick, and the food is on the outside, but since you're inside, it's considered like it saw the walls. You'd be chayiv. Assuming that you now turned around and ate it outside. So as long as you entered into your shlayim, even if the food is not, but you're connected to it, and then you go outside, so that's considered as though, even though it never did, it's like it went in and then out. Fine. And that's the answer. Let's see the next mission. It says the Masisa, a person who rips out hairs and makes bald spots because of someone who died, that's going to be an Isser, as well as v'hamekif pas roishai v'mashkas pas zekenoi, a person who cuts off his payas, or a person who shaves off his beard. We'll see that's going to be dafko the razor. The sarita achas al hames chayiv, where a person makes some type of cut on their flesh because of someone who died. In all these situations, you're going to be chayiv malchus. Okay. The Gemara is going to explain all of this. So, sarit srita achas al chamisha mesim. Let's say you made one cut, but you did it with das of 5 different mesim. O chamish sritas al mes achas echad. Or let's say you did 5 different cuts, but it was only for one mace. So the din is chayiv al kalachs ve'achas. Either way, you're going to be chayiv, which is a big chiddush. Even though you only really did one maisa, but since it was on separate mesim, so they're going to be chayiv each one. Al haroish shnayim. So when it comes to cutting the payas, you can be chayav twice. Ach mikan v'ach mikan, one on this side and one on the other. Al zakin, when it comes to the beard, shtay mikan v'achas milmata, one below. Rabbi Eliezer Omer im nitlun kuan ka'achas. If let's say you did it all in one shot, you don't chayav alachas. You only chayav one. We'll see what that means. Meno chayav ad shiatalenu batar. As we said, the whole isser is if you used a razor, an electric shaver. Most people allow. Maybe it depends what kind. Rabbi Eliezer Omer feel lekto b'milkat oy brehitni chayav. Even if you use pincers or other removers, some type of something else that rips the hair from its source, even though without a razor, According to him, you're also going to be chayav. Again, Gemara is going to elaborate on that machlokas. Says the Gemara, Tanraban. The pasuk says, "You're not to rip out hairs in your head. If yachol afil karach arba v'chamish krichos." If you did it 4 or 5 times, you'd only be chayav 1. Talmud leimer karcha l'chayav karcha v'karcha. Every separate maisa you're chayav. Baroi sham on your head. Ma talmud leimer lefish nemer los tisgoidedu v'los nasim karcha ben enechem. As it says, "Lo tisgoidu." Again, you're not allowed to make these cuts, and that's that pasuk, as Rashi says, is dafka mentioned by Yisrael, is not mentioned by the Kohanim. But it also says, they're not allowed to make these bald spots between your eyes. Lameis for someone who died. Bilvad. You would think it's only between your eyes. Talmud bilvad. Manana Rabbis kol harosh. Anywhere in your head, here. Talmud leimer b'roishim Rabbis kol harosh. Now, obviously, it doesn't mean here. There's no hair unless you have a unibrow. The point is right here, which is how we learned out tefillin. That's beinei necha. That's between your eyes, the place where there's hair. So it's interesting that of all places, this is how we learn the din of tefillin. There's an interesting link between tefillin and someone dying, because it says also that a person, an avos chai b'chol mitzvah semus b'torah chutz min pe'er. Tefillin. Tefillin is pe'er, it's glory. So tefillin is the opposite of is mourning. So it's the same thing. The place where there's tefillin, right? So how are you able to rip your hair bein necha? It's because you're not wearing tefillin, right? So it's the notion. There's an element of mace and the opposite of it is tefillin. Rabbos kol harosh. Ve'enli elo b'kohanim shir b'henakos mitzvos yiseris. Again, because the pasuk, one of the psukim, this parsha's talked in Parshas Emor about Kohanim. Yisomedai never so never karcha when never karcha. Malon chayv al kol karcha v'karcha v'chayv al roish kibin enayim. Avkan chayv al kol karcha v'karcha v'chayv al roish kibin enayim. Malon al mace avkan al mace. So therefore, it's all talking about a mace. You're chayv on each one, and it's bein necha. It also includes all other parts of your body. So hanidal dehe krichos hechadami. What does it mean that you ripped 4 or 5 times your chayav al kolach tziyachas? Lema bezarchazeh, that you did one after the other. Uvachamish hasrais. So let's say there's 5 separate warnings. So pshita, obviously in that case you're going to be chayav al kolach tziyachas because you received hasra on 5 separate actions. As we continue chafim and beis, elo b'chad hasra. Even though you only received 1 hasra, and then you did it 5 subsequent times, based on that 1 first hasra, you're chayiv 5 times. Is that true? But Tanan, nazir shayshas kol yom. You have a nazir who's just drinking wine all day, which of course is one of the things he's not allowed to do. He's only chayiv once. Amrulo al tishta, which means that he keeps getting hasra after each cup of wine. So we see clearly that when it comes to hasra, you have to give hasra before each action to be chayiv multiple times. So how could we say that 1 hasra you're going to be chayiv for 5 different rippings? Our answer is lotzricha desach chamish etzba'oisav nasha ve'oisvinhu bevasachas dehavile hasra cholchad v'chada. That basically you put some type of acid on a glove, let's say, on all of your 5 fingers. You got hasra and you did it simultaneously to 5 different parts of your head, which this acid or something caused 5 different bald spots at the same time. So there you're chayiv 5 times. V'kal mashir karcha. So what is the minimum amount to be chayiv? So Rav Huna Oimer Kedei Shira B'Roisha. It's got to be a big enough loss that you can now see a certain bald spot in your head. That's answer number 1. It's the size of a bean. Again, enough that you can see the bald spot. Tanoi. There's actually 3-way machlokas. Chad omer kigris, we said the size of a bean. Chad omer kedei shira meroisho, that you can see the spot. It's the second answer. Chad omer kishtei cyrus, even 2 hairs. V'ika the mapik shte saris umayel bikadosha. Some say no. Remove the words 2 hairs. That's really not a lot, and insert in place the amount of a barley seed. V'simanech, and the way to remember this is baharis kigris umichya bikadosha. That when it comes to different dinim of saras, depending on the type of saras, one is the size of a gris, one is the size of a kadasha. So this way you can remember that there's actually 2 of these shitas of the minimum of a bald spot is either a gris or a kadasha. Let's say a person cuts his hair with scissors, and he does this on Shabbos. The din is that he is going to be chayav for having done so. How much hair is considered pihazug, enough that can fill up some scissors? So even if what you do is cut off 2 hairs on Shabbos with scissors, you're chayav. I thought it said when it comes to ripping your hair out, it's 2. Not on Shabbos. Yeah, so it's the same din. It's also 2 hairs by that. Actually, even if you cut 1 hair, that's enough. Even though it's a malchokes, it's 1 or 2 hairs, they'll agree with Rabbi Lezer, have a lock in lavanis matech shchaydos, if you'll achashu chayev. But very interesting. If a person, and maybe I have a couple gray hairs, if I even rip out 1 hair, it's usher. And not only is it usher to do it on Shabbos, but even during the weekday it's an isser because of Lusa Masisha. That person is acting in a more feminine nature. A man should not be so particular if his hair turns gray. Okay, nishkafer if my hair turns gray. And the psychological word is that for a woman, and obviously a man as well on some level, especially nowadays, but the idea is that a woman's beauty is their youth. That's something which is important. But a man, when their hair turns gray, it doesn't necessarily mean they're beautiful or less beautiful, but it could be more dignified. Like we saw by Rabbi Nazari, his beard turned gray. No one said, "Oy vey, maybe you should have dyed it black." No, puffaker. The grayness of a man makes him more distinguished and respected. Make if pas roisho b'chul. Talking about pas roisho. What does that mean? It means soif rosh, the end of his head. The ezu soif rosh. Where is that? Zeh hamashve sidav lachuri ozno. This is where it makes even the side of the head of the ears ulpad chasoi to the forehead, which people basically say it's this area of where the ear ends. So this part of the hair, and some say up to this bone, is the area which a person is not supposed to shave off. Not only, this is an important din for a barber. So you can actually be a barber and violate tremendous amount of isurim. So if you cut off the payas of a person, so then you're also chayev. The person who got his hair cut, and also the person who cut the hair. So Omrle mandi ochel tamre be'ar vila, someone who ate dates from a bowl, lucky. A person will also get malchus. So what does that mean? What did that person do? So let's see Rashi. De'ochel tamre be'ar vila ha'ochel tamarim be'kavri, ate like a sieve. Yehei loike bit me a kleimer nikif, getting your hair ma pasha shehu loika. What is the pshia? Lav shembo. That's a lav shembo maisa volo lilki. Okay, so we'll have to understand what exactly that other case is talking about. But regardless, you're going to be chayiv for having your hair cut. Okay. The Omer Lachmani. Rabbi Huda, the Omer Lav Shembo Maisa Laikanolab. You can get malchus even for a non-action. So therefore, if you go to a bar and say, "Cut my pants off," so you're also chayiv. Second answer is Rabbi Omer b'makiv atzmo b'divrei. If you decide to save a couple bucks and shave your own head, so then you violate cutting off your own payas. Ravashi, however, if the barber does it, so lav shem b'maiser, you don't get malchus. Or Ravashi b'mesayah b'divrei koil. Let's say somehow you help him, like you turn this way or turn that way, you hold the scissors or something like that, then you're going to be chayiv. TB 22 as well as question 14. Echad hamaktiv echad hanikav loika. But my kimta the loika hanikav l'madi bein loika al lav shem b'maisa. Either you cut the hair yourself or you're messiah, you helped him. Either way, you're going to be chayiv. Okay, and again, that was also question TB 20. Okay. Weiter. Let's get to the next Mishnah. Tan Rabbanon. So pasuk kano yisav zikano ve'ezav zikano shiboylas ziknoi. Literally the ears of grain of the beard, which again it has to do with this part of the beard. If you cut your skin, your chayav. Tan Rabbanon. The sared yachal feels sared al beso shenafal al sfinos shetav yom. Let's say you cut your skin because you're so angry because you lost millions of dollars, your boat sunk or something like that, your house fell down, nefesh. Of course, you're not allowed to harm yourself. There's a chiyuv of shemar tamod that's nafsho seichem, but nonetheless, you're not going to be chayiv for this pasuk, because this pasuk is davka, you're doing it for a mace. I know you're going to be chayiv, but each time you do a cut, even though it's for the same mace, but since you did separate actions, some will remember seret. L'chayiv call srita v'srita, because seret is lashon yachid, and therefore it's like every single time you do it, you're going to be chayiv. Rabbi Yosi Omer Menayim srita achas al hey mesim shu chayiv al kol achas v'achas. How do we know? Even if you did one cut, but you did it for 5 separate mason rechayiv each time, talmud one nefesh. Chayiv al kol nefesh from nefesh. I already thought we went out that's what nefesh teaches you're only chayiv if you actually did it. You cut yourself because of someone who died, but not for these other reasons. So how could you learn out from here that you're chayav al kol nefesh from nefesh? As we can do chafal from Rav. So Rabbi Yosi srit v'gedida achasi. He holds that srit and gedida are actually 2 separate things. Look at Rashi. Tirvayu. Both of these languages, bein biyad, bein bekli, v'ksiv begedida lemeis lotis goydadu. When it comes to lotis goydadu, it says it clearly by a mace, losimukarcha, etc. So therefore, since they learn together, they're the same. V'ksiv hasam lemeis, over there it says lemeis. So therefore, we have that extra pasuk for a drush. Amar Shmuel, Masarik bekli chayev. You're chayev if you cut yourself with a kli. Meisvei srita v'gedida achasi. El srita b'yad v'gedida b'kli. Srita is not a kli. It's you rip the skin with your own with your own nails. So who do you have Rabbi Yosi? So it's actually a machlokas. Is srita considered, are you chayiv only b'yad or only b'kli? This is question TB23. Hamasarit b'vsar l'meis im chayiv b'yad or b'kli. Question TB23. So biyad, let's mark this down. TB23. Hamasarit bekli chayev. So he said, what do you mean? Srita is biyad, right? So it's a machlokas. So again, who do you have Rav Yosi? Fine. So the answer is biyad l'kuli alma. Of a kli, it's a machlokas. Okay. All right. All right, let's keep going. Tani Kamedu Rav Yochanan. Al meis ben biyad ben bekli chayev. It says you're going to be chayev if you cut yourself with let's say a knife or with your own hands. Al avodas kochavim, when it comes to idol worship, biyad chayev bekli pot. You're only chayev when it comes to cutting yourself biyad, not bekli. I thought we were the opposite. This is going to do kamishpatam b'charevos uveramachim. It says that you cut yourself with swords and spears. So we see clearly that when it comes to avodas kachavim, it's bekli. So el ema biyad pater bekli chayev. You're right. Okay. So again, even though it's a machlokus when it comes to srita b'meis, it's a dafka biyad or even bekli. When it comes to avodas kachavim, it's dafka bekli because of the xeris hakasav. Okay. Fine. let's get to the Mishnah. V'chayev al harosh. So Machvi Rav Sheshis, who happened to be blind, he pointed bein pirkei reisha between to the joints of his head. The al zokin shtayim mikan v'shtayim mikan the achs molmata. So Machvi Rav Sheshis bein pirkei diikna the joints of his beard, like these points over here. Rabbi Lezer oimer im natan b'chu ksaver chad lavhu, considers all like one lav. The enu chayav al ad sheitul batar. Only chayav use a razor. This is a famous sugya in kedushin nelsur tanubanu pasik kanamol yigalechu. They're not to shave off your beard, which is excluding to a woman who generally doesn't have beards, even though it's a lav. Yachol afil gochel b'misparayim yichayav. Even let's say if you cut your beard with scissors, tamud lemer lo sashchis. It has to be something which causes destruction. Lo tashchis yachol im loktu. B'milkat very hitni, which again is a machlokas, but according to the Tanakam, you wouldn't be chayav if you use pincers removers. It says don't shave. So even if it's something that rips your beard out, but if it's not something in which is a shaving action, you're not going to be chayav. So which one is it? So haketzad. So your answer is you need both. The only thing that has both elements, shaving and destruction, is a razor. He holds no, that even if you don't shave, you're still chayav. So Marashach, understand. If he does make this connection, then it should require a razor because that has shaving elements. So it should exclude these things. Then misparayim namulo. He shouldn't be allowing anything which causes hashchasa, even scissors. He doesn't say scissors are allowed. So it's saying if he learns gzer shava, then why does he say other things other than a razor? These items also somehow have an element connected to shaving, and therefore according to your chayav. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's see question 1. Hamashkas pas hazokin be'ezek kli l'kuliyam mechayev be'ezek kli l'kuliyam mepater. So with a razor, you're definitely chayev. With scissors, you're definitely pater. But milk of hitni, that is a machlokas. Question 2. Hamasari b'sar l'meis him chayev b'yad b'kli. So if it's b'meis, as we had already, b'yad chayev b'kuli alma, and b'kli is a machlokas. Okay. So it's the same thing as what we saw, which was TB 23. Question, we saw all that. Let's look at question TA 21. Hakareh chamish krachais basra achas, with one hasra, how many you chayev? Be'er es chaluki hadinim. And that's the key over here. So this is TA 21, TA 21, and therefore it's like this. If you did it bavasachas, it was bavasachas behemin kaimais at 5 separate places, like you put this acid on your hand, chayv chamesh. That's what we said over here. Well, tzricha desach chamish etzba'oisav nosav yoisvinhu bavasachas. So in that situation, your taka would be chayav all 5. However, where am I? So it's, as we know, just like by a nazir, right? He's eno chayav el achas, because if you only gave hasra once, and there's 5 things which were b'zach or zeh, so then you would only be chayav one time. Adkan.